I stood frozen, champagne glass trembling in my hand, as the MC proudly introduced my sister, not with our family name, but with our stepmother's. The room clapped. I choked. They all knew, except me. At that moment, something inside me cracked. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a funeral, a burial of my mother's name, of mine. And the worst part? I smiled through it, pretended it didn't hurt, but I wasn't going to let them rewrite our story. Not without reading every last word, and not before I set the ending on fire. The last time I walked through this gate, it creaked like it was mourning something. Now, it swung open effortlessly, smooth, silent, too well oiled, like everything else about this house. The Roberts estate had been repainted white, but not the comforting kind. It was clinical, museum-like, cold, as if someone had scrubbed away every inch of what once made it home. I stepped onto the marble path, heels clicking louder than I wanted them to. Every sound I made felt like an intrusion. My sister's wedding was in full bloom, and the place looked like a page ripped out of some bridal magazine. Ivory drapes, floral arches, golden centerpieces, and right in the center of it all stood Diane Clarkson, my stepmother. Perfect posture, perfect pearls, perfect fake smile. "Emily, you've made it!" Her arms spread like we were long-lost best friends. Her embrace was tight but hollow, like hugging a mannequin. Her perfume still made my throat itch. "You've lost weight," she whispered. "That's good." Lily floated past in her wedding dress, radiant, glowing. Her arms were linked with her maid of honor. Not me, obviously, but a woman I didn't recognize. Lily's smile didn't falter as she glanced my way. It didn't even flicker. I tried not to stare too long at her dress, but then my eyes caught something else, embroidered in gold thread on the napkins and signage. Lily Clarkson. Clarkson, not Roberts, not even hyphenated. I blinked. The MC was warming up his speech, guests were laughing, champagne was flowing, and I was drowning. I wandered inside the house, needing a moment to breathe, to escape the glittering cage, but the walls were no kinder. The family portrait that used to hang in the hallway, me, Lily, Mom, and Dad, was gone. In its place was a newer, shinier frame. Diane, Dad, and Lily. No trace of my mother. No trace of me. I stared, numb. My reflection glared back at me in the glass. "Maybe I am the one out of place," I whispered. Behind me, footsteps padded softly. I turned. A little girl, maybe 6, clutched a stuffed bunny and looked up at me with curious eyes. "Are you Grandma Diane's helper?" I forced a smile. "No, sweetheart. I'm her daughter's sister." She tilted her head, confused. "But Grandma says her daughter only has one sister. She's over there." She pointed to the maid of honor. Before I could answer, she skipped off, humming, leaving me standing in the hallway with 1,000 cuts no one could see. Back in the garden, the ceremony was about to begin. I took a seat far from the center. I wasn't assigned one. There was no name card waiting, no space saved. The vows were generic. The applause was polite. But when the officiant announced, "I now pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Clarkson," something inside me twisted. Lily didn't just change her name for marriage. She'd already done it long before this day. At the reception, I picked at a salad I hadn't ordered. My father brushed past me like I was a passing guest. No eye contact, no words, just silence that roared louder than any speech. A waitress accidentally spilled wine on my skirt. While I blotted it, I noticed something peeking out from the gift table, a small, unmarked envelope with my name on it. No frills, no glitter, just Emily in familiar, hurried cursive. I opened it. Inside was a letter. The paper was aged, edges frayed. It was from Lily, dated 3 years ago. "Dear Em, I'm sorry I haven't written. Diane says it's better if I let go of the past, but sometimes I dream about Mom and I miss you so much it hurts. I don't know if this letter will reach you. She checks the mailbox every day. But if you ever come back, please don't hate me. I just didn't know what else to do." I clutched the paper like it might vanish. My hands trembled. So she had tried. At least once. But someone, Diane, had intercepted it. She didn't just erase me from their world. She had kept them from reaching out, controlled the narrative. I folded the letter and slid it into my purse, heart pounding. A speech began over the mic. Diane stood, champagne glass raised. To Lily, my beautiful daughter, you are everything a mother could hope for, and I am honored that you chose to carry my name into this new chapter. Applause erupted. I didn't clap, because now I knew. This wedding wasn't about love. It was a coronation. The reception was winding down when I caught sight of him, Noah Jensen. We hadn't spoken in a decade, but we used to be inseparable. Childhood neighbors, high school prom dates, partners in teenage mischief. He was leaning against the bar, drink in hand, still wearing that crooked smirk he always had when he was about to say something reckless. I didn't plan to approach him, but he caught my gaze and raised his glass in silent greeting, then gestured for me to join him. Something in me obeyed. "Didn't think I'd see you here?" he said, swirling his bourbon. I could say the same. Noah chuckled, his eyes flicking toward the dance floor. "Hell of a production, huh? Diane's really outdone herself. She planned every inch of this thing, hired the film crew, wrote the MC script, even picked the fucking cake flavors." My stomach clenched. "Wait, Diane planned all of it?" He nodded. "Whole damn show. Just like she did your mom's funeral, if I remember right." The words hit me like a slap. My mother's funeral had been pristine, too pristine. White roses, closed casket, a slideshow with only a few pictures, none from the last 6 months of her life. I'd thought it was because Mom was sick that she didn't want to be remembered that way. Now, I wasn't so sure. "She orchestrated both," I muttered, almost to myself. "My mother's farewell and my sister's beginning. What's next? My wedding?" Noah didn't laugh. He just studied my face, all jokes gone. I excused myself, walking toward the house again, my heels wobbling on the cobblestone. Inside, the lights were softer now. The noise from the backyard faded into a dull hum. I wandered into my old bedroom. It had been repainted, redecorated. Nothing of mine remained. But the closet door still creaked the same way it used to. I opened it, half hoping, half fearing. Behind a pile of spare linens was an old jewelry box. Not mine. My mother's. It was scuffed at the corners, the lock tarnished. I remembered it well. She used to hide love notes from my dad in there, little sketches from us as kids. I pulled it out, heart pounding. The lock was still shut. Noah found me 10 minutes later with a hairpin and frustration smeared across my face. "I used to be better at this," I mumbled. He crouched beside me. "Need a thief?" He picked the lock in less than a minute. Inside, not jewelry, but papers. A bundle of folded documents tied with a faded ribbon. I pulled them out one by one. The first, a handwritten letter. My mother's handwriting, shaky but unmistakable. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't get to finish what I started. I was going to sign the new will tomorrow. I wanted Emily to have everything. She's the only one who sees through the masks. But Diane, something's wrong. She's changed the pills. My prescriptions don't match. I feel dizzy all the time. Please, if you love me, find the truth." I couldn't breathe. Noah steadied me, reading over my shoulder. Jesus Christ. I opened the next paper. The unsigned will. Everything. House, accounts, personal effects, left to me. No mention of Diane. No mention of Lily. Just my name. My mother's final voice, stilled before it could speak. And then there was the medication list. Handwritten dates, pill names crossed out and rewritten, a list of side effects, dizziness, fatigue, memory lapses, scrawled next to them. "Did she ever show signs of this?" Noah asked softly. "She thought she was just getting worse," I whispered. "But she always looked at Diane like she knew something she couldn't say out loud." The final envelope was smaller. Inside, a photo of me and my mom on my graduation day. Tucked behind it was a note. "To the one who finds this, I trust you more than anyone. The truth is hidden, but not gone. You have my strength. Use it." I pressed the picture to my chest, eyes stinging. She had known, all along. She had suspected Diane. She had tried to protect me, but I'd been too far, too angry, too hurt to see it. I looked at Noah. She tried to warn me. He nodded. So what are you gonna do now? I stood, spine straightening, fire simmering low in my gut. I'm going to finish what she started. They called my name like it was a gift. A special speech from the bride's sister, the MC beamed, gesturing toward me like I'd won a prize. People clapped, some politely, some surprised. I wasn't on the program. I hadn't been asked. Still, I stood. I walked slowly toward the small stage, the letter from my mother clutched in my hand like a lifeline. I didn't plan to speak long, just enough to say what mattered, just enough to remind Lily, if she could still hear me, of where we came from. But the moment I stepped onto the platform, the lights dimmed. A screen behind me flickered to life. I turned, confused. It was a photo montage, but not one I recognized. The first image was from our childhood, Lily and me at the beach. Except, my face was distorted, warped digitally, blurred like someone had poorly edited me out. The next few were worse. In one, I was completely replaced with a smiling Diane. In another, my graduation photo had Diane's name beneath it. The crowd laughed. Awkward chuckles. Confused murmurs. "Oh my God," someone whispered behind me. "Is this part of the show?" I turned back to the audience, heart pounding. Diane sat front and center, smiling, a knowing, polished grin, her glass raised in mock toast. She did this. She planned this entire spectacle. This wasn't an accident. It was a surgical strike, a media erasure, a visual rewriting of history where I never existed, a symbolic funeral for my memory. My hands trembled. The letter crumpled slightly in my grip. I looked down at it. My mother's handwriting, the truth she tried to preserve. I could feel her voice in my throat, begging to be read. But I couldn't do it. Not here. Not now. Not with Lily clapping beside Diane. I lowered the mic. The MC tried to recover. "Well, thank you, Emily. Let's give her a hand." I walked off the stage, out of the tent, out of the garden. Rain had begun to fall, soft at first, then harder, like the sky was exhaling what I couldn't. I didn't care. My heels sank into the mud. My hair clung to my skin. I kept walking, away from the lights, away from the music, toward the tree line behind the estate, the one my mother and I used to walk through on quiet evenings. Footsteps followed. I turned sharply. A woman stepped into the dim light, older, umbrella in hand. Her face was familiar, but aged by time and grief. Still, I knew those eyes. "Aunt Margot?" My voice cracked. She nodded. "I hoped you'd recognize me." I hadn't seen her in years. My mother's younger sister, the one who'd vanished from our lives with only whispers and warnings. My father said she was dramatic, that she stirred up trouble. Diane said she'd never respected boundaries. But she hadn't vanished. She'd been erased, just like me. "I saw what they did in there," Margot said, her voice low but steady. "She's been planning this since your mother's diagnosis." I stared at her. "You knew?" "I tried to tell your father. I tried to tell you. But Diane, she's meticulous. She turned everyone against me, said I was trying to tear the family apart." Tears blurred my vision. "She manipulated everything, even Mom's treatment, even Lily." Margot stepped closer. "Your mother suspected. That's why she started changing the will. That's why she sent me copies of her journals. Emily, this isn't just about you. It never was. Diane's done this before." My heart skipped. "Before?" "Your father had a fiancé before your mother, years ago. They broke up suddenly after she had a mental episode. Guess who her caregiver was?" The world tilted. My breath caught. "She's been climbing ladders, Emily," Margot continued, "replacing women, inserting herself into families, erasing the past. You're not the first." I looked down at my soaked shoes, then at the crumpled letter in my hand. My mother's words, my blood, my anchor. I'd spent so long trying to forget this place, trying to survive it. But survival wasn't enough anymore. I had to fight. Later that night, I stood in front of the mirror in the guest room they gave me. An unfamiliar reflection stared back. Hair wet, dress ruined, mascara streaked. I looked like a ghost. But behind my eyes, something burned. If I don't act, I whispered to my reflection, I'll become them. I smoothed out the letter, folded it carefully, slid it into my journal beside the will. I wasn't just mourning anymore. I was preparing. The hospital hadn't changed. Same pale green walls, same scent of antiseptic and loss. I hadn't been back since the night we lost her. The place made my skin crawl, but I needed answers. I needed truth. Dr. Harlan used to be kind, attentive. He never brushed off my mother's concerns the way the others did. And then, one day, he was gone. Dismissed. Professional misconduct, they said. Medication mismanagement. That had never sat right with me. I asked the front desk for his contact info. They hesitated. I pushed. Eventually, they gave me a P.O. box and a warning glance. I found him living in a trailer 2 towns over. The door creaked open, and there he was, gaunt, older, haunted. I don't do interviews, he said immediately. I'm not press, I replied. I'm Emily, Roberts, Elizabeth's daughter. That made him pause. I was told you were the one who mismanaged her prescriptions. He looked away, jaw tight. They made sure that's what people believed. I stepped closer. Did Diane Clarkson file the complaint? His silence was answer enough. She said you overdosed my mother. Got her so confused she couldn't make decisions for herself. He shook his head. Your mother was lucid. Too lucid. She questioned everything, started logging her meds, asking for second opinions. Diane didn't like that. Next thing I knew, I was under review, and she had full medical proxy. She had control, I whispered. All of it. I left his trailer trembling but alive with clarity. Diane had painted him the villain to steal power. She wasn't just manipulative, she was calculated, strategic, and I had been passive for too long. Back at the estate, I began digging. Deeds, bank statements, family court filings. Buried beneath the surface was something that stopped me cold. Lily's name, Lily Clarkson, was on a legal amendment filed 4 years ago. It granted her beneficiary status under Diane's surname as a dependent. Adopted daughter, it read, not stepdaughter, not cohabitant. Adopted, full rights, full inheritance access, and that explained everything. Diane had erased not just my mother, but her lineage, her name, her bloodline. I found Lily in the garden later that afternoon. She was barefoot, walking along the stone path our mother used to weed every spring. I need to ask you something, I said gently. She turned, startled. Now's really not. Please. She hesitated, then nodded. Do you ever think about Mom? Her brow furrowed. Of course I do. Do you remember her voice, her laugh, the way she used to braid our hair? Lily looked down at her hands. Sometimes. It's blurry now. I studied her. Did you ever ask why Diane changed your name? Why she made you legally hers? She said it was for protection, so I'd be safe if something happened to Dad, so I wouldn't get lost in legal chaos. I nodded slowly. And did she ever say why she kept me out of everything? Lily's lips parted, then closed again. Her voice was barely audible. She told me. Mom didn't love me like she loved you. That she left me out of things on purpose. That it was best not to dwell on her. I felt the breath leave my body. You believed her? I didn't know what else to believe, Lily whispered. I was 13. I was scared. Diane was the only one left who stayed. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. Then I reached into my purse and handed her the letter. Our mother's handwriting. Addressed to me. But now, for both of us. Lily's fingers shook as she read. Her face collapsed inward. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't either. But now we do. She looked up, eyes rimmed red. What do we do? I have a plan. I spent the next 2 days building it. I reached out to a private investigator, friend of Noah's, discreet, thorough, gave him the adoption records, the forged amendments, the inconsistencies in Diane's timeline. I contacted Dr. Harlan again, asked him to make a statement, to record everything he knew, I called in favors from old law school classmates. Quiet research, legal avenues, back doors Diane wouldn't expect. And I prepared for the family brunch. It was scheduled the morning after the wedding, Diane's idea. To solidify our bond as one family, she'd said, voice dripping sugar. I packed a small recorder in my bag. Lily would sit next to me, and when Diane lifted her glass for one final toast, we'd begin. The night before, I stared at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom, now repainted, repurposed. No echoes of who I'd been remained. Just the whisper of my mother's last request, to find the truth. And now, finally, I had it. The brunch was held in the sunroom, glass panels flooding the space with light far too bright for the weight in my chest. White linens, silver cutlery, rows of hand-picked garden roses. Diane sat at the head of the table, beaming like a benevolent queen. Lily beside me, silent. Dad on her right, eyes downcast. Everyone was sipping mimosas when I rose to my feet. Before the toast, I said, voice steady, I have something to share. Conversations quieted. Forks paused mid-air. Diane's smile twitched, but she didn't move. I didn't speak at the wedding yesterday, I continued. Not because I had nothing to say, but because what I needed to say wasn't about celebration, it's about truth. I reached into my bag and pulled out the recorder. Diane's smile finally faltered. Her fingers curled against her glass. I pressed play. It began softly, her voice, silky and calm. The recording from the night I'd planted the device in the study. Her conversation with my father, replayed in front of every cousin, aunt, neighbor seated at that table. She's too sentimental, too much like her mother. Elizabeth was always too curious. I had to manage that. You just sign the new documents. I'll take care of the rest. A sharp inhale rippled through the room. Another clip played. You don't need to worry about Emily. She left years ago. Let her stay in the past where she belongs. I let the silence settle. My father sat frozen. She changed the will, I said, loud enough for even the servers to hear. She isolated our mother. She altered medical decisions. She manipulated adoption records. And she tried to erase me. Diane stood up, slow and trembling. You vindictive little... Sit down, I said. And to my own surprise, she did. Then, the real twist. My father stood. For a moment, I thought he would defend her. He looked at me, jaw clenched, then glanced at Lily. Then Diane. I knew, he said quietly. The room held its breath. I didn't know everything, he added. But I knew enough, and I did nothing. Diane's head whipped toward him. You coward! I let her control too much, he said, because it was easier than dealing with grief, with guilt, with losing Liz. He looked at me again. I failed you, and I'm sorry. My knees almost buckled, but I stood still. Don't apologize to me, I said. Apologize to her. I pulled out the photo. My mother, smiling, whole, untouched by Diane's narrative. The glass in Diane's hand shattered against the floor. You will never have a family again, she screamed at me, red-faced. You think this makes you right? You think this makes you safe? Two men in suits entered quietly from the patio, local detectives summoned the night before. Diane Clarkson, one said. We'd like to ask you a few questions. Chaos unraveled. Guests murmured, chairs scraped. Diane tried to argue, but no one defended her, not even Dad. They led her out while she shrieked, voice cracking with disbelief. She'd lost control, and it terrified her more than anything. When the doors closed, silence fell again. Lily remained seated, hands trembling. I passed her the photo of Mom. She stared at it for a long time, then, softly, I don't remember this moment. It's okay, I said. Now you will. Margot approached quietly from behind me. She hadn't been invited, but she came anyway. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. I sent that letter, she said. The one from Lily. I intercepted it before Diane burned it. I didn't know if it ever reached you. My throat tightened. Thank you. She smiled faintly. Your mother always said, only you would be strong enough to finish what she couldn't. Around the table, eyes turned to me. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Old family friends. Even Dad, still standing, still unsure. One by one, people approached. Some apologized, some simply nodded. But I didn't need their guilt. "I don't want your forgiveness," I said, loud and clear. "I want you to see what happened. I want you to remember who she was." I glanced at the photo again, then at Lily, who still clutched it tightly. "This wasn't about revenge. It never was," I said. "It was about being seen." The legal proceedings took months, but truth is patient. It doesn't scream, it waits, and eventually it wins. The unsigned will, the voice recordings, the medical inconsistencies, everything came together like a puzzle that had always known where each piece belonged. Diane's influence evaporated under scrutiny. The court reinstated the original inheritance plan, the Roberts estate, the family accounts, all returned to my mother's intended beneficiary. I didn't feel victorious. I felt whole. What surprised me most wasn't the money. It was Lily. She approached me one afternoon, documents in hand. No dramatics, no apologies rehearsed. Just quiet resolution. "I changed it back," she said. I glanced down at the papers. Her name, Lily Elizabeth Roberts. She'd chosen it herself. "I didn't do it because you asked," she added quickly. "I did it because I remembered who gave it to me first." I nodded. That was enough. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just sat side by side on the porch Mom once filled with sunflowers, letting the silence say everything. Weeks passed. The house felt different, lighter. I'd restored the photo wall, framed the one of Mom and me that used to sit by her bedside, hung Lily's childhood drawing, the one she made the day our dog died, right back on the fridge where it belonged. But restoration is never just about reclaiming space, it's about choosing how to fill it next. I launched the podcast from my kitchen, just me, a mic, and a voice that had been silenced for too long, for the forgotten daughters. A place where women could speak about being written out of their own stories. A place where we remembered not just what was lost, but what we reclaimed. The first episode was about my mother. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I spoke of grief and gaslighting, of love twisted by silence, of the long, quiet path back to selfhood. Emails poured in. Women from everywhere. Some who hadn't spoken to their sisters in years. Some who'd buried mothers under false narratives. Some who had once believed they deserved to be invisible. One wrote, "I listened to your voice while sitting in my car outside the house I ran away from. Thank you for reminding me that I existed." I printed that one out and pinned it above my desk. One morning, I met Lily in the park. She brought her daughter, Sophie, a toddler with wild curls and the same stubborn smile I'd seen in the mirror at that age. Sophie ran to me with arms wide. "Aunt Em!" The words hit me harder than any courtroom ruling ever could. I scooped her up, laughing through tears. She smelled like apples and fresh grass, like a second chance. Lily sat across from me on the bench, sipping iced tea. She was quieter these days, softer, but stronger too. "She knows your voice," Lily said. "She listens to the podcast with me sometimes, thinks you're famous." I smiled. "Only to the right people." We watched Sophie chase a butterfly across the lawn. A wind chime from a vendor's cart rang somewhere in the distance. Everything felt oddly still, like the world had paused just long enough for us to breathe. Lily reached into her bag and handed me a folded paper. It was Mom's favorite poem, typed, laminated, framed. "I found this in her Bible," Lily said. "I thought you should have it." I traced the words with my fingers, memorized again the rhythm Mom used to recite it with. I could almost hear her voice, that warm hum that used to lull me to sleep. "Thank you," I whispered. Later, I sat alone on a picnic blanket as Sophie napped beside me, her tiny fingers curled around my scarf. I pulled out my journal, the last page still blank. I wrote, "Mom, I couldn't change what happened. I couldn't bring you back, but I did stop them from burying what was left of you. I told the story. I made them listen. I remembered loud enough for all of us. And as I looked around that quiet park, Sophie's soft breaths, Lily's peace, my own unshaking hands, I knew. I hadn't just found justice. I'd found a beginning.